President Biden. He swung and missed many swings, many misses at his first debate with Donald Trump that he and his team wanted to happen, made happen, when it did, how it did, and probably at the time that it did, even though clearly it was past his bedtime. And now there is massive damage control happening from the Biden campaign because of how awful this debate performance was. I don't have clips from it, but we all remember even the easy questions were poorly answered. And then the most forceful of the strongest answers were all about Ukraine, which is like, okay, buddy, you can't give 3 answers about Ukraine. So I don't want to play those clips.
If only he had taken your CBD gummies to really be able to focus.
The lion's mane, exactly. The lion's mane, the cordyceps. I love that. Sunset Lake CBD for when this happens. Old man. Okay, but let's just go style, substance, form before we get into the backlash. Prem and Caitlin. Caitlin, let me start with you. What was your, like, when you watched this debate, if you subjected yourself to it?
Well, I certainly didn't actually watch it because I was like, I don't want to watch 2 old white dude fascists blabber at each other. And from my understanding, that's exactly what happened. And so I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go see A Quiet Place day 1 instead.
Dude, I think a lot of people were in the theater. I feel like everyone who, like, my brother was like, I saw Inside Out too. Fuck that. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that was probably the smart choice instead of streaming it live. Well, it was bad in form, substance, and style. Prem, I think my biggest thing was that not only did he demonstrate that he was old as hell and was like losing the train of thought and couldn't stick any landing and started rambling about like a migrant raping, like some migrant rape story rather than talking about abortion. It's that even if he had crushed every single answer, his answers were still, sort of Caitlin's point, kind of just stock centrist. I'm tough on the border. I'm tougher on this war. Like he had no commanding vision. There was no even a fucking catchphrase. People make fun of Kamala Harris for a catchphrase. At least she has one. Like, there was no vision. There was no like defining like some way to organize his thoughts to come back. It's like when you're stand up, right? It's like you got your thesis, come back to your thesis. Women be shopping. How? Go back to the, you know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't even have the women be shopping line.
Stealing my material.
Exactly. Sorry, Kate. But Prem, what do you think?
What's striking is that if you look just at the substance, beyond, all the miscues that you just listed about Biden's own messaging, Trump was not only so low energy, he was, some would say well-behaved, but as we know, well-behaved women don't make history, as we've learned over and over again. But he, just so low energy, not even getting into the fact of his racist comments, his xenophobic comments, his anti-Palestinian comments, et cetera, et cetera. His, outright lies, you couldn't even count them on all of your fingers and toes. But even despite that, it was just so unfortunate to see what you're describing, which is just over and over again, Biden either walking through answers kind of listlessly or not returning to a central thesis, as you say quite rightly. It was just, this was meant to be a moment of reassurance, a moment that despite all these concerns of his age, about whether, he's up for the job, about even just his policy on Israel's war in Gaza, on immigration and so on, this was a moment where he could take those issues, take ownership over them, contrast him. You say, he kind of adopted centrist framing on immigration, which is a good point as well. He did almost the exact opposite on all those things.
Yeah.
And even on the abortion question, as you mentioned too, just floating into what perhaps seemed like a canned answer he was going to later say about immigration by mentioning that instance, then just combining it into what should be one of his main issues of a person's right to choose, people's agency and bodily autonomy over their own bodies. Something that Trump, of course, that's probably one of his weakest points.
Yeah.
Conversely, Trump over and over again every single answer was about immigration over and over again.
Yep.
And of course, in some ways very blatant, where he would be asked about childcare and he would just go back to immigration. Of course, dodging questions, but nonetheless,
Childcare,
going to
climate
the
change,
thesis.
should there be a Palestinian state?
All of
3
it.
answers that when it was punted to him, he said, I just want to go back to the other thing and how he's letting go undocumented, basically people in mental institutions, he's dumping them out, emptying them out and allowing them to all get citizenship. That's it was just like, what are you talking about? And it was funny because I don't know. I think obviously on climate and on, childhood education and on abortion rights, Biden does have better answers than that. He couldn't even be like,
Definitely.
You can't answer the question.
Definitely.
Look at you pivoting. Look at you ignoring it and telling some lie. Answer the damn question. What's your plan for the climate? He couldn't even do that. And I'm not a debater. I've been bad in debates. And even I'm like, oh, come on, dog, But okay, so the real thing is the fallout. And the fact is that everyone from the New York Times op-ed editorial board saying Biden needs to leave the race, to the DSA, Biden needs to leave the race. What we've been saying for months, and the DSA has far better critiques than someone like the New York Times does, but you have pod save guys like Tommy Vitor saying you can't say that the future of American democracy is at stake and then tell anyone concerned about the debate last night to stop bedwetting or grow a spine. It's fucking insulting to people who care deeply about the country and know how much is on the line. Ben Rhodes, former Obama advisors, telling people they didn't see what they saw is not the way to respond to this. Nate Silver, who's actually said this before, Joe Biden should drop out. Again, of 538. And Ezra Klein has been saying, Ezra Klein did a whole thing about how Joe Biden, all these centrists. So here's my thing. Usually these are the people I don't trust. So should I? No, the DSA is not people I don't trust. But anyway, it's wild how much the liberal establishment is now saying he needs to drop out. Just today, Representative Clyburn said he would support Kamala Harris if Biden stepped down. And Democrat Lloyd Doggett is actually of Texas Democrat, is openly saying that Biden needs to step down. He said, quote, President Biden saved our democracy by delivering us from Trump in 2020. He must not deliver us to Trump in 2024. That's a lot of consensus. But it is still a risk. And I just want to show this because Joe Biden the next day was at a rally in Raleigh, which I can't believe I'm saying, at a rally in Raleigh. And he, it was during the daytime, so he was peppy, and he had his teleprompter, so he was on message. And this is how he defended himself in his debate performance. This is just a little bit of it. He said, look, I'm not a young man. I don't debate as well as I used to. And then this is how that bit ended.
I give you my word as a Biden, I would not be running again if I didn't believe with all my heart and soul I can do this job. Because quite frankly, the stakes are too high. The stakes are too high.
So despite all of that, he is saying he can do this job, and they are cheering, yes, you can. Now, I think we all remember that yes, we can was Obama's defining message, his theme, if you will. And it is so horribly ironic and embarrassing that yes, you can is now the chant for convincing this melty brain octogenarian that he should stay in the race. I'm like, do we not see what's happening?
I mean, what has he even done in the past 4 years as president? Even his horrible debate skills aside, his horrible performance, all that stuff, I don't know. He's done absolutely nothing to convince, I think, me certainly, but what has he even done?
I mean, that's fair. And the fact that you can't point to things other than maybe a genocide is really indicative. I I have had the misfortune of having to defend Joe Biden's victories and the things that he has done, right? Whether it's the Inflation Reduction Act or the bipartisan infrastructure plan and the American Rescue Plan, there have been good things. There have been the student debt relief. I know people have had all of their debt wiped out completely. Some of this is being litigated.
What?
You can,
Where's mine?
Right. And it could be coming. You got to look it up, but it's super piecemeal. It is very, very slow reform here and there. The Federal Trade Commission is doing incredible stuff, going after Google, Amazon, now going after Ticketmaster, going after these junk fees. Pete Buttigieg saying you get full reimbursement if a flight cancels on you. We're protecting the consumer. All of that is lost because, again, there is no message, and the messenger and the person at the helm is not there. And Prem, I was struck not by that chant, but by him saying, I can do the job. That's actually secondary to the real question, which is, can you win?
Yeah. I think many people have been calling for at least the question to be asked as to whether there should be a different nominee for months now, have been kind of shunned, ignored, punted aside, because I think a lot of people didn't have to viscerally confront what other people were maybe concerned about in months past. And at this point, I think, as you've noted, there's a wide spectrum of people asking the question now, because a lot of these people do, sincerely believe that Donald Trump presents a very big threat to this country, to people of all stripes, whether they're workers, whether they're members of the LGBTQ plus community, whether they're women, whether they're migrants, whether they're people of color, so on. You can just keep going down the list. And based on the 4 years we've already seen and Project 2025 and just the words he says, we know this to be true. And so now a lot of these people, I think, are just so much more incapable to either actively or just passively deny that, to your question, President Biden in his form as a messenger, which is a big part of the presidency, but a very large part of being a campaigner.
Yeah.
He be up to snuff. And if you believe all those threats and you see this person who might not be able to take it on, then naturally you would react in such a way. And especially, we'll actually be publishing a piece about this, probably within the next hour or so, but just the escalation, both of how quickly the dam has broken in terms of people either insinuating that, I'd be open to someone else, or outright saying, as Congressman Lloyd Doggett, the first member of Congress to do so, to say it's time for him to go. This is happening very quickly for good reason. And I think it's because people are internalizing the fact that based on polls, based on perception, based on media coverage, both fair and unfair, to be also fair, Biden might not be set to make it happen in 5 months because, he's not getting any younger. And it's okay. Age happens to all of us, and we should embrace that and accept that, and also accept that sometimes it's okay to sit and relax.
Absolutely. Take a load off, retire, be the transitional candidate. And I think that's an interesting, in terms of like how it could all happen. There's an interesting discussion we have, and I'll show you one poll that has come out recently. But what could happen? The Democratic National Committee's official procedures at the convention adopted in 2022 give the committee the authority to choose a new candidate if either member of the ticket, the president or vice presidential nominee, withdraws or dies. So they're both, Kamala and Biden are in this detente here. You withdraw. No, you die. We'll see. Anyway, now, if it is Kamala Harris, all of Joe Biden's delegates don't automatically go to her, even if he endorses her. He has the power to leave the race and release all the pledged delegates. He has accumulated 3,894 of the 3,937 committed so far, according to the AP. During his march to the nomination, if he were to do so, those delegates would be free to vote for whomever they choose. That would lead to an open convention, a rarity in modern American politics, but not something that hasn't happened. It could be a brokered convention. In fact, up until the year, that's how we did it. That's how we used to do it. So I'm told by people who know history better than I do.
But he'd have to stand aside willingly for this to happen, right? And do we see that happening?
Have you tried to tell your parent that they just give them tips on driving and maybe they shouldn't drive anymore? I've been driving for 70 years. That's the problem. But yeah, this is I mean, we will see. This is so everyone's waiting for the polls, and I didn't have this prep, but here we go. I don't know if you guys can see this. This is a new CNN post-debate poll, which arguably is is people are hot and bothered, and is coming off of this really terrible performance. But pretty much in every single matchup, Trump is winning. These are all potential candidates, but he's winning by less compared to other candidates than to Biden. So Biden, 49% to 43%. Trump Harris, 47%, 45%.
Ooh, only a 2%.
Hey,
little difference there.
So that's what people are freaking out about. Newsom, 43% to Trump's 48%. Buttigieg, 43 to 47%. I'm like concerned about that missing point. Or no, Trump to Whitmer, 47 to 42%. But really, it's the Trump-Harris matchup that is looking the most interesting and appetizing. And honestly, I have to say, even though I really don't like Kamala Harris, it should be Kamala Harris. Like, she's the fucking vice president. Doesn't that make the most sense? I don't know. Prem, what do you think?
Yeah, I think if they're just going for ease of both just procedural ease and logical ease, and probably like given if there's a broker convention, I think Harris probably has the strongest shot. I also think based on this poll, but also previous polls, we've seen that this has been the case for a little bit, that a lot of the other candidates are either performing similarly or even slightly better than Biden against Trump. And that's with no campaigning, little to no name ID, and not taking into account that, as we probably feel that at least perceived, that many people in this country do not want a rematch between Biden and Trump. In some ways, for those who feel that the parties just kind of pick and choose, for some people, this feels like the third rematch of first it was Hillary Trump, then Biden Trump, then Biden Trump again. And so there's just a general fatigue that regardless of whoever they picked, if it was someone else, particularly someone that like seemed active, behaved, and actually had younger ideas themselves, that would stick out a lot. And so these polls already are like, oh, well, Biden isn't necessarily the only candidate that could take on Trump. And that's, again, not without campaigning, not without name ID. And another thing, recently, or in the past, I mean, I don't know, time is such a wormhole now, but in the past months, Biden had said, I don't think I'm the only one that could win. I think others could win too. And then kind of just waved off to the next question. And it was like, okay, wait, if you think that,
then get out of there. Go away.
To what you said, Francesca, like this yes, you can mantra is so, I mean, very classically great, man. It's like, you don't need to do this again. I mean, if you believe the stakes that you hold true about how this election matters for millions and millions of people in America, and probably for millions across the world, it doesn't have to be you. No. If you think others could do it too, and if people around you are being honest about the situation, that, hey, it looks like, the odds aren't necessarily in your favor. But I guess that gets to something we want to talk about a little bit later, about just the insularity of this administration.
Yeah, you have a lot to say about that. And let's move on to it. I have more to say, and I will do so, tomorrow, and people can hear my thoughts. It's as Prem said, there's a lot moving really, really fast, and we'll see. But yeah, there is I was just gonna say the yes we can line. It reminds me of, the United States men's team got knocked out of the Copa America, which I love to watch yesterday. And it was pitiful. And because they're not good. They're just not a good team. Sorry, they're not a good team. And they should be better. But I always hated the slogan for American soccer teams, which is, I believe that we will win. And you hear them say, I believe that we will win. And it's always when the U.S. team is like 0-0 with Uruguay, which is a massively strong team. I believe that we will win. And you're like, just don't say that. Don't say that, because it makes you sound like you're believing in fairy tales, and like I'm getting the same I believe that we will win energy out of the Biden campaign. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuation room. Do it.